you who I have not met closely, my name is Donna Smith. I live here in Chicago now. I want to say that I am one of the 4 national co-chairs for PDA's Healthcare Not Warfare campaign. And I want to do a special recognition right now that if everybody join me in. One of our national co-chairs, her name is Marilyn Clement. And she is the head of Healthcare Now, an organization that has fought tirelessly for single-payer healthcare and continues to do so on a national basis. Marilyn Clement was diagnosed with multiple myeloma a few weeks ago now. She is at her daughter's home in Virginia. She is undergoing chemotherapy, and I know she would be here tonight if she could. And she would be in this fight. She still is working very hard behind the scenes, but I wanted to recognize the contributions that Marilyn's made and do that in a way that I hope a lot of people will see on the web. And one more sappy thing I'll share with you before I start, because I always do that. You know, my husband and I were featured in Michael Moore's movie Sicko, and I tell people that's not because our story was so unique. It's because our story was not unique. It's because we represent what's happening to millions of American families. But if I look back on that time frame, I cannot tell you, I honestly can't tell you the date that I first met Michael Moore, I first interacted with their staff. What I can tell you is the date that I first met this woman, and the date that I first met Tim Carpenter from PDA. It was July the 17th of 2007, when I became the first American citizen, the first to testify in front of Congress about the financial devastation happening to America's families, insured families, as a result of the healthcare crisis. And the reason I mention that is because what an awesome organization we are a part of. People who embrace one another. And I look in this room and I see so many friends I've met over this year. It's an incredible organization, and I'm so very honored to be a part of it, and can hardly imagine what a year later this is where we are. So, on that note, I got a call from Norman last week asking me if I would go to Cleveland to go to pitch PDA's resolution. We drafted a resolution. Norman actually drafted, I think, the resolution, the language of the resolution, along with Diane and others, and came up with a resolution. We wanted our party, the Democratic Party, the National Committee, to embrace as part of the platform as we go into Denver. What you may or may not know is many states and many state platforms have already addressed and endorsed single payer. Colorado is one of them. My former home state has their state party has part of their platform is single payer health care. So we felt it fairly logical and a good thing to get our national party to embrace a resolution that has all the goals that we want to see happen in health care in this country. So they were doing what's called a planning, their platform planning committee hearing was held in Cleveland on Friday and then continued again today. So I went in yesterday. I flew in on Thursday night, and I flew in very excited and anxious to do God's work, as it were, for PDA. And Tim and Diane and Norman all gave me everything I needed. And Laura sent me things by email. I went to Kinko's. I got everything copied. I'm ready to roll. I put it on nice paper. I spent extra money to get felt the weight of the paper. That's not the normal weight of the paper. I thought, I'm going to do this nice. And I'm going to get it in all the committee members' hands. There were 22 people, 22 committee members there from the Democratic National Committee Platform Planning Committee on Friday. And I have a list of them if you're interested in them. They were chaired by Arizona's governor. And we thought, Tim had made some contacts, and we thought we might be able to give a 3 to 5 minute pitch about the resolution that PDA had come forward for. We knew it might be a little bit of a long shot, but we certainly might have a chance to do so. What became clear to me very early on, my hearing, the time was to run from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. On Friday. And I arrived quite early, as I know Norman did for his today, because I thought I'd better see I like to get a sense of the room and what's going on and where we're going to be sitting and what's going to be happening, and sign in early if I need to do that. Folks were there, so I signed in early. Press was setting up. But it became very clear to me, because they said we haven't got the schedule delivered yet, that it was staged. And I don't know any other way to put it, that right at the moment, the way it appeared to me, is that our party, our national party, the National Democratic Party, is tightening its message. It's tightening in as the election gets closer, because the stakes are very high. Stakes are very high. So their willingness and ability to open up and let all voices to be heard is growing less and less right at this point. When they got to the healthcare portion of their testimony, they had already designated who was going to speak. Now, one of the positive things that happened as I went through the crowd, there was a man named Leo Gerard there, head of the United Steelworkers. And when I handed him our PDA literature and I said, here's our resolution that we had hoped to present today, he said, oh, the real Democrats. So that was very positive. So I had to take my strength from the little bits and pieces, because it was very clear I was not going to be among those presented. No one from PDA was going to be among those presented. The people who presented on health care were as follows. Jeannie Lambrou, a senior fellow of the Center for American Progress, stayed very on message in terms of what the crisis is, how many millions are uninsured, how many other millions are underinsured. Although it's interesting to me, she said there were 20 million uninsured. That's not underinsured. There are 47 million estimated uninsured, and 50 million more estimated as underinsured. So that information was not the greatest. What she purported was that we must have affordable options for all Americans, and that we have to have shared responsibility for our health care. I always love that message too. Then we heard from a pediatrician, so I had some hope. I thought, oh good, we're going to hear from a pediatrician. This will be good. Dr. Julianne Thomas, from the American Academy of Pediatrics, spoke, and she talked about comprehensive coverage for kids. Then we jumped, and we heard from Mark Bloom, the Executive Director of America's Agenda Healthcare for All, Partnership to Fight Chronic Disease. So we jumped from the issue of trying to cover people right on to we're going to talk about chronic disease, which is a problem in America, no doubt about it. We have a lot of chronic illness, part of which is caused by the fact that people can't get preventative care. And then we jumped to Amy Comstock, Rick, President of the Coalition for the Advancement of Medical Research. Those were the four presenters that our national party heard from on health care. And that was a grave disappointment to me. It really was. For those of you who know me very well, I feel very passionately about this subject, and I spent a little time sitting in the lobby there with a lot of tears. Not a lot of sound, but a lot of, just for the sadness of my party. You know, we're the party that the Democrats are the ones who embrace all comers. At least that's part of why I am a Democrat. As we're the people who are about those who don't have all that they could have in this country. And yet I felt very marginalized in this process personally, and marginalized as a group. So that was a difficult procedure. Now the positive side, labor, the people from labor who spoke were generally very strong on what they said about health care and what it's doing to this nation's ability to compete for workers and for the economy. They did not say the word single payer, but they certainly spoke pretty eloquently. Leo Gerard was one of those, and then Arlene Holt-Baker, the Executive Vice President of the AFL-CIO. It was a tough assignment to take on, and I think it was tough. I was hopeful that through my experience today, that Norman would have an easier ride, or yesterday would have an easier ride today. But he'll share with you how it went. What we're wanting now, and Chuck will talk a little bit more about Pittsburgh. The party platform committee will go on to Pittsburgh. We're about to finalize the platform. Is that we have some delegates already who have signed this resolution, who have signed on to the PDA resolution. And go online and look at it if you haven't. Go online and look. We need more delegates signed on to this by the time Chuck and I are in Pittsburgh on Saturday, the 9th of August. And we need your help to make that happen. The more delegates we can take in supporting PDA's resolution on health care, the better we'll be. Thank you very much.